Hey there, in this video I'm going to show you how to create and deploy and use a Cloud Run function, a Google Cloud Run function. All right, so I will walk us through a couple of examples, one where it's already been set up and I'll show you how to use it and all that, and second we will create the function. I'll show you how to actually create the function and then test it and then show you different ways to use it, etc. Okay, before I do that, I'll take a couple of minutes to just at a high level talk about what is Cloud Run functions, Google Cloud Run functions, use cases for it, why use it, right? So basically, Google Cloud Run functions is a serverless execution environment that allows you to build and connect different cloud services such as BigQuery, Bigtable, PubSub, Vision API, Language API, etc. And we deploy functions as a service on Cloud Run. Okay, and we can configure it. We can configure the function to react to HTTPS requests, and that's what I'm going to show you. That's what I do. I'm not going to show you how to respond to events propagated by event track based triggers. And Cloud Run functions can be triggered by events provided by this kind of services. I'm focused on HTTP. Invoke functions directly using HTTPS requests, and that's what I'll show you in terms of how to do that. Okay, here are many different use cases. There are tons of use cases for using a Cloud Run function. I primarily use it for this here, so that's I'm going to show you an example of where we are going to query a table that I have in BigQuery, and I'll show you another example where I actually create the function and show you how to create it, test it, and use it. Is around Language API from Google, where we will take a text from user and see what the sentiment is. Okay, so many use cases in real life. It's much more heavily used for things like performing database sanitization, looking for changes in tables, and looking for a real life example is if you have a table that's updated in near real time with sales numbers, you can use PubSub to send you an email every 5 minutes with updated sales numbers, etc. Okay, so enough of that. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to leave you everything that I'm showing you. I'll leave a link in the description that will let you have all this information. So we're going to build and deploy a Google Cloud function, as I said, and I'm going to show you how to test and use it. All right. Hey, if you find the video helpful, useful, or just informative, please do consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video. Thank you. All right, let's get going. So here's something that I've already created. I have a table in BigQuery and a table of like some number of ETFs and some basic information about those ETFs. And let's say I wanted to let my friends query this very, let's say this, I'm making this up, this ETFs are highly regarded ETFs that one should consider buying, but it doesn't matter. So I want my friends to be able to query this table, and based on their criteria that they want to get a list of ETFs from certain sectors, etc. Well, this function that I have created, a Google Cloud Run function that I created, it sits as a service in Google Cloud. I created this app here where a user can say I want to sort on company name, and I want all ETFs in my table that are from Spider. So here's a little data frame that shows all the ETFs from that provider. Okay, how this happens is, here's the actual code that created that Streamlit app that relied on this URL, this function URL. And I already created this, and soon I'm going to actually create one for you. And so you can see how it's exactly done. So it's actually just relying on this this URL, and we make a request to that URL with the query based on the criteria that was selected here. We had selected a company name equals spider, right? So it basically sends that to the function and returns the answer back. And here's what that function looks like. Let me show you. File, open file. I'll show you what that function is. All right, so this is the function where we're sending the query based on the criteria that the user selected. That SQL query is passed here, and then we get the query from the request body. Basically here, I'm going to give you this code so you guys will have all this. And then we actually send that query request to BigQuery, get the results back, convert that into list of dictionaries, serialize the results to JSON, send it back, and I just converted the JSON into this pandas data frame. Okay, so the magic is this. I no longer have to work, like there's no importing of BigQuery from google.cloud or anything like that. It's just relying on this function that I've already created. So, let's say I launched this streamlit app on Heroku for my friends. They can use this, and then later let's say I actually have another use case where I have to launch something on AWS. I can still call this, and or anywhere else. From many different places, I can make this HTTPS request. Okay, so that's how this was already done. So now let's do this example here where, let's say we want the user to provide some text that they want to understand what the sentiment of that text. So we will take that input, we'll use Google Cloud Natural Language API to determine the sentiment and pass that sentiment back to the user. So I already have created that code, and so before you actually go and create that function, you want to make sure that it works as intended. And here's, I'm going to give you this code as well. So this was the function that I created that I want to ultimately create in Google Cloud as a Cloud Run function, but I want to test it and make sure that logic works. So here I'm going to import this few libraries. Here's the function, and I created this little that here we'll create this little JSON based on this text. I love ice cream. So if I run this, I should get sentiment positive. Okay. All right. So we know it works, and now what I would do is I would actually copy this function into, but I'm not going to do that. I already done that. So here's that same function, get sentiment. Okay, but here I just have this function, and now we want to actually create a Cloud Run function out of this, and you have to save this function as main.py, and you want to also create a requirements.txt file that highlights all the dependencies that you're going to need. Let me go into the terminal. The step number 1, and here's the instructions on how to build and deploy a Google Cloud Run function. And so let me come back here. First thing you'd want to do is create a directory. Let's call it function4, where we're going to save that main.py and requirements.txt file. Okay, and I'm going to head over to this directory that I created. Should be nothing in there. And so since I already have this, I'm going to save this as file save as in our newly created directory. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with this requirements.txt file, save as in our function4 directory. Okay, so you have to call it main.py, and you need to have requirements.txt if you have dependencies that you want to declare. Okay, in this case we need this library. All right, so this is the name of the function, and that's going to be important later because this is the entry point for the function that we will deploy. All right, the way we do this is, let's head over to this terminal here and go into, we're already in the directory, but you want to be in the directory where there is. Now if I list here, yep, we have the main.py. So you're in this directory, you got to have the main this code, Python code, and requirements.txt. If I go to my instructions here, this is how we actually deploy, okay, the function. So let me copy this command here and go back here. And I'm going to have to change a few things in here. I want my entry point is get sentiment. That's the name of my function, right? And because that's why I was telling you it's going to become important later, because that's your entry point. The name of the function. And then this is the service name, and we'll just call it run get. So this is the name of your service. You can call it whatever. I could have just left it as get users get sentiment or whatever, right? So it doesn't matter. So, and the other things to note here are runtime. We're using Python 3.11. It could be 3.12, 3.10, whatever the case may be for you. How we're going to trigger it, HTTP, and we're going to allow unauthenticated. And so that way, you know, you can, anybody who has access to this URL could use it, okay? And if it was authenticated, you would have to go through a few extra steps to make sure, you know, how make sure it works for people you have authenticated and authenticating the people you want to be able to use this, etc. But I'm not going to do that here. All right, so if I hit return here, it should take about a minute or so to actually deploy this. While it's doing that, I'm going to start to show you, once it's deployed, we should test it and make sure it works as intended. And there are plenty of ways to do it. A highly recommended test is this, using command line tool, because this curl command here, I'm going, you know, in the link, there's in the description. In the description, there's a link to all of these documents. Okay, so we will test this. We will also test Postman. It's a really cool tool that you can use for, you know, testing this function. And, you know, actually, there's a whole lot of things we can do with Postman, but we'll do that, and we'll also test it with the Python code. All right, and it's still doing that, still working through it, no worries. In the meantime, let me come back here and show you this. So when I, you know, in this document that I'm sharing with you, make sure you change this to whatever your entry point is. I'm just going to leave that as that. And this is the service name, so you can call it whatever. Avi's sentiment analysis, I could have called it. That's the name of my service, okay? So I just want to point that out. And it's done. So here's the URI that we got. Now let's, first thing I said, let's test it with this curl command here. I'll copy this, and I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to have to do a few things. Instead of we're going to have to plug in the real URI here, which is this. So if I copy, no, that's not what I meant to do, but in any case, we'll come back here, copy, control, paste that. And then I also need to change the payload here, because it's not John and it's not name. So it's text is the key in the JSON, and I could say, I really love pizza. All right, so that guy should come back as a positive. Okay, so this is all you have to do is, like, you know, you're sending or you're posting the text that you want to get the sentiment for. It should be very positive, and it is positive. Okay, so if I go back to the code here, what it does is takes that payload that I sent, right? I really love pizza, and it's looking for in that request in the JSON, it's looking for that there is a text key in there, and then we just retrieve what that text is. In that case, I really love pizza, and you know, I'm going to spare you all this. I'm going to give you the code so you can, if you really wanted to like use this code for, you know, getting sentiments, you will have it. But basically, then, you know, I take that text, this API will come back and give me a score. If it's less than 0, it's negative, otherwise greater than 0, positive, otherwise neutral, and that's what is kicked back. And in this case, it's positive. Okay, so the first thing we had done was we had made sure that it would work as intended, so you had to try it out, and here's the code that lets you do that. And then now I showed you how to do that with the curl command. I can show you how to do that with using Postman. We're going to post to this URI here that I already have copied, so I should be able to just paste it. That's the last thing I copied. Yep. And in my instruction set, there's like step by step how you do this, right? So I'm just make sure to change it to post, paste the URI. Next, all you got to do is go to headers. Content type is JSON, because that's going to be the body, the payload, and so it's raw, and you want to select. It's already defaulting to JSON, but it's got to be a JSON payload. And here's how we create the payload. In this case, we have text is, I'm not sure that I liked that movie. Okay, so that's the payload. Got post URI, JSON, send. It should come back as negative. There we go. All right, so the second way of testing it, third way of testing it, there's many others I'm sure, but the third way to do it is through a Python code, and it's because we already have, let me paste the new URL here. So I'm going to test this by sending this text here. Not sure that I really like that movie. The same thing to this function here, which is really creating this payload. Same thing that we did in Postman, but it's like it's coded in Python. All right, I'm going to give you all this so you can use it if you want to. But here, all we have to do is all we need is this two libraries. Okay, there's no using it in Google's API or their language APIs, because that's already in our function that we created. Right. All right. So coming back to this guy. Let's run this, make sure I got everything correct here. I got the right URL. All right, negative. Okay, so showed you 3 different ways to test it. And now real life application would be, where you're actually, let's say, creating a streamlit app for your coworkers, where they would, your streamlit app basically probably would be like, hey, type your text in here or paste your text in here, hit something, hit submit, and yeah, that would be part of this here somewhere. You would do that. You would plug in your URL here, and basically you would be sending that text here, the URL and that text, and you would change this guy out to make sure it's not query, it's text, whatever the case may be. It's the same thing that I showed you here. Okay, and that way, and then you have this Streamlit app that you can share with your coworkers, or actually that deployed on Heroku, Cloud Run, on AWS, doesn't matter. And guess what? All you have to know is this guy. And the cool thing is, you could actually deploy it on Heroku, on Cloud Run, on AWS, on Azure. It doesn't matter. So many different ways to deploy web apps. But all you would need is this guy, and you would just won't have to worry about anything else. Okay, so here, many different reasons why to use a Google Cloud Run function, and basically I gave you a little very, very high level overview. There's plenty of videos out there, plenty of literature that tells you what exactly is a Cloud Run function and all that good stuff. Okay, but most important thing is, I'm assuming you are watching this video because you want to actually deploy a function. Okay, and I showed you how to do that using this set of instructions here: creating a directory, blah blah, and the main.py requirements.txt, then using this to actually deploy. Okay, and then what you want to check for, the last thing, is this: the function that we just created. Go to your Google Cloud Console, go to Cloud Run Functions, and this is the guy we just created, run get sentiment. Okay, that's the name of my service, and this is the other one, run BigQuery query. That's where we listed those ETFs using that function. Okay, created just 7 minutes ago. So there you go. And one last thing I'll show you is that if for some reason you're not going to be using it anymore, this creates a registry here in artifacts, creates an artifacts registry. So you would want to make sure, if you're not going to be using it, let's say I'm done with this, I don't want to do this anymore, you'd want to delete that. Okay, because if you don't, it's not going to kill you, but Google Cloud will keep charging you for having this images in your artifacts registry. Okay, something to know and keep in mind. All right, you all, hope you found this helpful and or useful and or informative, and if so, please do consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you. Until next time.